And welcome to the I Love CVille Show. Thank you kindly for joining us. We're live from our downtown Charlottesville studio in the Macklin building, and today's show is presented by Scott Wagner of Scott Wagner Integrated Medicine. Who's got your back? Dr. Wagner and the team at Scott Wagner Integrated Medicine have your back. For those that are watching the show, I know many of you stream it through Spotify, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, but many of you guys watch it on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, Snapchat, TikTok, whatever it may be. And if you're watching the live show, look at the screen now. Here are the headlines we're going to be talking about on today's program. I'm going to rattle them off quickly before going to the first topic of today's show, and that's a new brewery opening in Charlottesville proper. This new brewery is going to open at 943 Preston Avenue, and it's called SuperFly Brewing Company. Judah Whitcower, our director, and yours truly will offer some facts, some who, what, when, where, and why of SuperFly Brewing Company, where it's opening, the kind of beers it's already got from a featured standpoint, and what we think of another brewery opening in what seems to be a very crowded and saturated space of craft beer. Remember, Charlottesville City is about 50,000 people. Central Virginia, the region in totality, about 300,000 people. And one thing we have a lot of is local brands specializing in booze. Whether that's beer, wine, liquor, cider, there's a lot of them out there. 943 Preston Avenue for SuperFly Brewing Company. That's right next to Shenandoah Joe's. I also want to ask you this question. What is the brand name for Preston Avenue? Look, Charlottesville City is not that big. And one thing we like to do in Charlottesville is to give brands or monikers to people, to entities, to jurisdictions, to districts, to neighborhoods. In Charlottesville City alone, you have the Corner, you have the Downtown Mall, you have the Midtown brand, which, let's cut to the chase, Midtown, that moniker was birthed here at I Love CVille and at V&V Brands. That's a moniker we were first to use, Midtown. It's the area between the UVA Corner and the Downtown Mall, West Main. It's Midtown. You have, what? Star Hill, the Star Hill neighborhood, the Belmont neighborhood. You have Fifeville. You have Greenbrier, right? I mean, you have the Barracks area, the Rugby area. We give monikers to a lot in this community. But I'm asking this question. What is the brand name of the Preston Avenue corridor? And let's define the Preston Avenue corridor. I'd say the Preston Avenue corridor is defined by maybe Washington Park all the way to Vinegar Hill. Washington Park all the way to, do you say Siren and the Shebeen are part of downtown? Or do you say Siren, the Shebeen, Laura Fonner's restaurant, Siren, the old Shebeen location? Do you say that's downtown, or do you say that's Vinegar Hill? I think a lot of locals would still call Siren and the Shebeen Vinegar Hill. So as a result, I'd say the Preston Avenue shopping, dining, restaurant, drinking corridor is from Washington Park until Siren. That area. What's the brand for that area? What is the brand for Preston Avenue from a shopping, dining, drinking, entertainment standpoint? And you got a lot there now. You got Random Row. You got Cardinal Hall. You got Rockfish Brewing Company, Random Row Brewing Company. You got Shenandoah Joe's. You got Bodo's. You got a lot of entertainment there and a lot of nightlife and a lot of walkability there. You got Marie Bett right there, right? You got Martin's Hardware right there. You got a lot of shopping and dining. What's the brand for that stretch? I want to talk about that on today's show and offer some ideas. I want to talk on today's show about Michael Payne's comments on City Council last night. Michael Payne straight up said this, and I'll read it verbatim. Michael Payne, City Councilor, Charlottesville, he says this: We are almost kidding ourselves if we think the supply side solutions are going to be enough to ever address the biggest need in our community, and we have to invest in subsidies and community land trusts and land banks. Michael Payne is basically saying we are joking or kidding ourselves if we think new construction is going to create affordability. I was shocked to hear those comments from Michael Payne last night. I'll tell you why on today's program. UVA and Virginia Tech tonight, 7 p.m. tip-off, John Paul Jones Arena. ESPNU is showing the game. The Wahoos are a 5-point favorite. And Judah Wickower and I are going to offer some suggestions for who should replace Cena McGill on City Council. That decision will be made at the end of February. Applications still being accepted. The cutoff date is nearing for the last spot on City Council. Thank you for joining us, guys, on the I Love CVille Show on a Wednesday. I want to welcome Judah Wickower into the mix on a two-shot. He's the director of this Fair and Fine talk show. And, you know, you and I banter back and forth before the show starts about what we're going to talk about. We try to come up with ideas for content for the show. I don't think people realize how consuming or labor-intensive coming up with content for a show like this that's tied to Central Virginia and the Charlottesville area on a 5-day-a-week basis is. It's hard. It's difficult keeping the content fresh, right? We have to read a lot. We have voracious appetites for reading. And in planning and brainstorming for today's show, we discussed the fact that a new brewery is in the hopper for Charlottesville City, Judah. And it's SuperFly Brewing Company at 943 Preston Avenue next to Shenandoah Joe's. What initially struck you about another brewery opening here?
I mean, they all show up in the same places. You've got a very small, amount of space where all these breweries are showing up, and you've got one right across the street, just down the road at Random Row, and you've got one literally right across the street in Dairy Market with Star Hill. Although I don't think they do any brewing there.
Star Hill brews beers there.
Do they?
Star Hill brews beers there. Yeah,
okay.
So let's talk about Preston Avenue and let's dissect Judah's comments. You have Star Hill. You have Rockfish, Star Hill Brewing Company in Dairy Market.
Yeah.
You have Rockfish Brewing Company. Its first location. It now has a second location in the downtown mall. You have Random Row Brewing Company. And you have Cardinal Hall, which is a very craft beer centric business model. Now you're going to add essentially a fifth craft beer brand in SuperFly Brewing Company. The expectation for their grand opening is the first part of 2023. The proprietor is a gentleman named Ed. He's worked at Random Row. He's got certifications on craft brewing, and he's really put ample time into learning the business.
Yeah.
SuperFly is the concept. It's a eclectic.
I mean, we really don't know.
From what we've gathered so far.
Yeah, I can read them the description.
Read them the description.
So let's see.
Read them the description.
Here we go. Coming soon in 2023, Charlottesville, Virginia gets to step forward and backwards simultaneously. A small independent brewery with a difference. First class classic beers in a funky and hip tap room on Preston Ave.
The tagline, small funky brewery tap room with first class beers. The beers already on the website for SuperFly Brewing, the website URL superflybrewing.com. They have beers already on. They have a Golden Torch, an English IPA. They have Golden Cage, a Belgian Golden Ale. They have Bohemian Like You, a Czech Pilsner. They have Fritz, a German Dunkel. North Circular, a London Porter. This must be the place, a New England IPA. That's what I would order. Love Train, a fruited Berliner Weiss. The beers range in price from $6 to $8. Most of them are in the $6 range. Look, I'm going to cut to the chase. Anybody who's pursuing the entrepreneurial game and is looking to open up a craft beer business in Charlottesville, Albemarle County, or Central Virginia, my wife and I are going to patronize your business because we love craft beer. It's one of our passions. We'll give everyone a chance. We'll give everyone a second chance, probably a third chance, even a fourth or fifth chance. At that point, it's about whether the beer is good. I think it's genius to open on Preston Avenue. I know you have beef with that, and if you want to banter back and forth and maybe bicker for the sake of a talk show, we can do it as well.
I don't mind, but I know a lot of people are. I've seen a lot of chatter about that spot. It's
what's the chatter?
The chatter is it's impossible to park there.
That's okay. That's one of the things. Parking in craft breweries. Perhaps the fatal flaw of Hardywood's Pilot Brewery on West Main Street was the piss-poor parking. A lot of people make the argument that you need to walk to places of alcoholic consumption. But the reality is most people are getting to and from breweries and bars, wineries, vineyards, and cideries in a vehicle of some kind.
And we've been talking a lot about how affordable the city of Charlottesville is. I mean, do you want people coming to your brewery from Albemarle, from outside of town, from
a tax purpose, you do.
From Waynesboro?
From a tax revenue standpoint, you do.
Of course you do. And so not every and who really is walking around all of Charlottesville?
Well, you can park in one location and you can brewery hop. And Preston Avenue, I like the concept of opening another brewery on Preston Avenue because like the car dealership scenario where you often see car dealerships aggregated in one location, cough, cough, Pantops.
Yeah.
Cough, cough, 29. You do the same thing with the brewery because you can bar hop, you can brewery hop. And Preston Avenue, I'm going to start making the argument that Preston Avenue has quickly become, once SuperFly Brewing opens, maybe you're talking the epicenter of craft beer in Central Virginia, a 300-person market. Maybe the new epicenter that's now superseded 150 Fun, 151 in Nelson County and in Afton. Okay? That strip has some great spots. It's got Devil's Backbone 151. It's got the new three-notch bought Wirewolf. That's going to be fantastic. It's got Blue Toad Hard Cider. It's got Bold Rock Hard Cider. It's got Blue Mountain Brewery. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a fantastic stretch of craft beer. But Preston Avenue is going to have the same kind of depth and parity and the same kind of offerings with craft beer, with basically 5 locations if you include what Cardinal Hall is doing. And people will bar hop from Star Hill to Random Row to Rockfish to SuperFly and then finish at Cardinal Hall for some dinner or some more craft beer. Okay? It's turned into a little epicenter. And now you got to ask yourself this question. And where are you putting the map on screen?
I can.
Put the map on screen. Look at the screen, viewers and listeners. Look at the screen.
You want the actual map first?
You're the director. You have some autonomy in what you're showing on the show. You can do whatever you think is clever. Whatever's clever. What are you putting on screen first? I have a 10-second delay versus what you're actually doing.
We've got the map.
Okay, there's the Google map. Look at the screen. Look at the screen, everyone. Look at the screen. There's the Google map of where SuperFly Brewing Company is going. Now you have the street map, right? This is right next to Shenandoah Joe's. Is this? The speculation is this is Glow Out Glamour Bar. Let me see. I'm going to Google the address 943 Preston Avenue, Charlottesville. I'm putting that in Google. You got Street View on screen, J-Dubs?
Yeah.
There's Street View. All right, see if I can find Glow Out Glamour Bar. I'm trying to figure out. No, that's not the address for that. 943 Preston Avenue is right next to Shenandoah Joe's and Top Notch Pharmacy. What is the brand of this? Go back on a 2 shot for us.
We are.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's Superfly. Superfly is actually showing up on
Google Maps?
Yeah. It just showed up.
It just showed up right there.
I actually
I see it. 943 Preston Avenue, Suite 2. It's on Google Maps. It wasn't on Google Maps this morning.
No, I didn't see it there either.
That's fantastic. So it's literally between Top Notch Family Pharmacy and Martin Hardware. It's like right next to Shenandoah Joe's Coffee Roasters. And look, let's cut to the chase. Shenandoah Joe's and friend of the program, I love this guy, Dave Fafara. Dave Fafara, are you watching the talk show? Someone tag Dave Fafara. Someone text Dave Fafara. Someone call Dave Fafara. Someone talk to Dave Fafara and let him know we're giving him props. I love Dave Fafara, the owner of Shenandoah Joe's. Shenandoah Joe's is an extremely popular brand. And if you know anything about Shenandoah Joe's on the Preston Avenue location, that place is popping. It is popular. And there's a lot of traffic and a lot of parking around Shenandoah Joe's, to the point where Shenandoah Joe's customers are parking along Washington Park on the side area right off Preston Avenue, the side street. If happy hour at SuperFly Brewing Company coincides with coffee hour, which I would say is like until 4 o'clock at Shenandoah Joe's, I see people chilling at that Shenandoah Joe's until punch out time, 5 o'clock, 5:30. I mean, it's a place where people are working. That's going to turn into a parking snarl.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not going to be fun. But I mean, we'll see. Maybe they've got a solution for it.
I'll get to the comments from Kevin Yancey, Scott Aaronworth, Todd Rath, Philip Dow, Paul MacArthur, MJ Arquette here, Janice Boyce-Trevelyan in a matter of moments. Do you want to make a comment or offer any perspective on IPAs?
On IPAs?
You and I differ on this talking point, but I know you have a comment to offer on IPAs.
I mean, I know the argument is that that's what everybody's ordering, but when you go someplace and they have 8 beers and 4 of them are variations of of a pale ale. I mean, you've got your IPAs, your DIPAs, your DIPA. Why is it DIPA and not DIPA? Or
DIPA.
DIPA.
DIPA is DIPA.
You've got New England pale ales. You've got American pale ales. I'm sure there are probably more that I haven't heard of yet or just don't care about. But it's a little bit crazy.
All right, so not only are you saying there's a craft beer saturation, but you're saying that craft beer saturation locally is birthing another saturation, and that's an IPA saturation.
I don't know if it's birthing it. It's already, I think it's...
You do have a lot of IPAs. You got hazy IPAs, you got DIPAs, you got IPAs, APAs, like he said, New England IPAs, you got a lot of IPAs.
Yeah.
The reason you have a lot of IPAs is that's what people are ordering. It's a hop head consumer right now in craft beer. And people have made arguments that sours were going to be the next cool thing.
I don't
and
know if any...
Reason came into the area with its brewer master who had experience at Maine Brewing Company, and he said he was going to do a completely different beer menu that was not super IPA focused. Reason made great beers, but I wouldn't say they got a ton of market share. If you're talking the most popular beers in Central Virginia from Central Virginia breweries right now, the beers that immediately come to mind, the Minuteman from Three Notched, the Missile from Champion, the Full Nelson from Blue Mountain Brewing Company, the New England IPA from Rockfish Brewing Company, the Northern Lights IPA from Star Hill Brewing Company. You get my point.
Yeah, I mean, you're
the
saying...
flagship beers of the area and the flagship breweries of the area. Devil's Backbone's flagship beer is the 8 Point. It's an IPA. The flagship beers from the flagship breweries of this local area are IPAs. So that's why they're brewing IPAs. And I get your point that if someone can come in and figure out in an approachable or ubiquitous way to brew a beer that's not an IPA and brand it and get it out to the masses, then maybe that brewery can gain market share. I think that's a legitimate point you're making, and it's a good business strategy. No one has succeeded in doing that so far. Who has succeeded in doing that so far the best?
I mean, that's a tough question. I mean, that's like
Shower Beer champion. Hunter's got two beers that he built badass brands for. The Missile.
Shower Beer's not a pale ale.
Shower Beer is not a pale ale.
It's been a long time since I've had
Shower Beer is not a pale ale. Hunter Smith, the owner of Champion, has got two beers that he built bona fide brands for, and that's the Shower Beer, which is the Czech Pilsner style beer, and Champion Missile. What other beer in Central Virginia, non-IPA, would you say is iconic? The Ghost for 3 Notch is an APA. I put that in the IPA category. What
I would say
other...
the Blue Mountain, what is it, Dark Hollow?
I don't know if that's iconic. I like the Dark Hollow.
I mean, that sells out like days after they come out with it.
Iconic means it's ubiquitous and purchased 365, 24/7.
Okay.
I'm not saying, I don't think the Dark Hollow is being purchased on a 100-degree summer day.
No,
IPAs still
I don't
are.
even know that they brew it in the summer.
My point exactly. I love the gingerbread stout from Hardywood, but I wouldn't say the gingerbread stout from Hardywood is a 24/7, 365 beer.
No.
Is the beer that was brewed locally, that's a non-IPA, is the most iconic one the Shower Beer from Champion?
Vienna Lager, maybe?
That's a good one. Vienna Lager's a good one. Devil's Backbone. That one's iconic.
Yeah.
That's a darn good one.
That's my friend's go-to.
The 3 most iconic beers for 3 Notch, I would say, are Minuteman, Ghost, and 40 Mile.
Yeah. But is that because they put them...
That's because they sell.
Okay.
And because they sell, they brew a lot of it. Because it's a for-profit business. Now, take it a step further. What's the brand for 3 Notch? What's the brand for Preston Avenue? We're in the branding business.
You want to give it a name?
Guys, viewers and listeners, we legitimately were the first to brand and moniker the area between the downtown mall and the UVA corner, West Main Street, as Midtown. That was something that was birthed at I Love CVille and at VMV Brands, and we call that area now Midtown. We birthed that. Let's birth a brand for Preston. Todd Raff, the owner of Blue Toad Cider, says Uptown. If West Main Street is Midtown, then Preston Avenue is Uptown because the road is parallel to Midtown, West Main Street. It's also higher up, more north than the downtown mall. Is that Uptown? Is Preston Avenue Uptown? Talking this
I don't know. I mean,
right now. Good call on Uptown. What's your suggestion?
Midtown North?
Midtown North? Woody Fincham, good call on the Vienna Lager. Kevin Yancey, Star Hill, Love or Jomo. Elena Mangione, South Street's Satan's Pony. That's a good one. I'm going to respond to Elena Mangione on that one. That's actually a really good one. She came up with the idea, what beers in Central Virginia are iconic and non-IPAs. She said the Satan's Pony from South Street. Interestingly enough, I thought one of the best branded local beers in the history of Central Virginia beers is now from a brewery that is closed, and that's the Blonde Honey from Wild Wolf Brewing Company. The Blonde Honey with that iconic labeling. It was a pretty tasty beer. I would say that was one of the best beers that 3 Notch, that Wild Wolf made. That and the Primal Instinct. The IPA was really good. But the Blonde Honey was arguably one of the most iconic non-IPAs birthed in Central Virginia, birthed and brewed in Central Virginia. Remember that beer?
Yeah.
And why do you remember the beer?
Because of the label.
Because of the branding, because of the packaging. Mary Wolf did a brilliant job with the Blonde Honey. She understood the concept of iconic branding and packaging.
Yeah.
You say Midtown North.
Why not just call it the corridor?
Call it the what?
The corridor.
The corridor?
Yeah.
Your choice, your suggestion for branding an area that people base their livelihood on and feed their children and pay their mortgage. If they hired us, the Preston Avenue Neighbors Association went to V&V Brands and hired us to come up with a moniker for their shopping, dining, entertainment district, you want us to suggest the corridor.
Sure.
The corridor.
Well, not now.
You don't think that lacks a little creativity?
I mean, you want to make up a name?
That's what branding is, dude. Hence, okay. Midtown.
Well, then go ahead.
Hence, Tin Whistle Irish Pub. Hence, Citizen Burger Bar.
Yeah.
All names we came up with. I would call it, I don't mind Todd Raff's suggestion of Uptown. I don't mind his suggestion with that.
There you go.
Or do you stick true to the roots of Preston Avenue and tell the story of Preston? Like, what's the significance behind the name Preston on Preston Avenue? And you could weave a potential brand and narrative and story if the history is something that you can utilize in an advertising campaign. And if I was the folks that were in charge of the Preston Avenue Shopping District or Neighborhood Association or whatever the hell the group is for Preston Avenue, whatever the group of owners of real estate and businesses and housing is, I would say we could build a brand like Belmont's become a brand, and that will drive values for our houses that we own and live in. It will drive values for our commercial real estate, and it will send incremental customer base to the businesses along the corridor. That's the advantage of building the brand. You can use the brand for an advertising campaign to drive incremental revenue to this strip of business, and that will also create trickle-over value, real estate value increases for homeowners and property owners. I've seen this. We saw it in Belmont, right? We see this in Asheville. We see this in Richmond.
How did
Scott's
you see
Addition.
it in Belmont?
What's that?
How did you see it in Belmont?
Downtown Belmont.
Yeah, but it's always been Belmont,
No.
hasn't it?
No. When I lived in Belmont in 2004, 2005, that was right as Moss was starting to kick. Belmont was super blue collar, and it did not become yuppie and young professional and white collar and bougie and expensive until Mas Tapas, La Tasa, and the local made it what it is today. That area, real estate values gained value when Belmont got branded as a dining and entertainment district. And when you think of Belmont, you think of Mockingbird and Tavola and the local, and you think of Bell and you think of Mas Tapas. And because of that brand recognition and equity, the houses in Belmont have increased in value exponentially. And if it wasn't for the significance and the traction and the momentum and the positivity of downtown Belmont's dining district, the real estate in that neighborhood would not have appreciated at the clip and frequency that it is appreciated at. And I significantly, truly, and I think you, the viewers and listeners, agree with what I just said there. If Preston Avenue was able to build a brand, all that side street real estate, and there's a ton of side street real estate by around, Marie Bette, back behind Bodo's. There's a ton of side street real estate there along Rose Hill and roads parallel to Rose Hill. Those homes will appreciate tremendously in value if Preston Avenue gets a brand similar to what happened to Belmont. And right now that's missing from Preston Avenue. And if I was leading the charge, or if they hired our firm to help build them a brand, because they know that every dollar they spend creating a brand is going to return 100x in a short period of time once that brand catches traction, I would build that brand around the, what's the word, burgeoning?
Burgeoning.
The burgeoning craft beer district. on Preston that is arguably the epicenter of craft beer in Central Virginia. That's what I would do it.
All right. Well, then what's your name?
I mean, I'd have to look in the significance of Preston. Do you have any kind of narrative or history on Preston, of Preston Avenue?
I don't.
I don't. I mean, we should look into that. I mean, you could potentially... Preston owned and lived along the roadway. Oh, there's a Preston Avenue CVillepedia. I can read from this.
Yeah.
Preston Avenue is a road in the city of Charlottesville which extends from Ridge McIntyre Road to Barracks Road, connecting North Downtown with the Barracks Road Shopping Center. The roadway is characterized by a large landscape center median featuring an art-in-place installation. Preston Avenue is lined with a mixture of light industrial and warehouse facilities. The Coca-Cola building is a notable property on the roadway. History. In 2000, okay, look at this. You tell me this isn't marketable? In 2019, City Council voted to change the name to honor Azalea Minor Preston, an African-American educator who taught in segregated schools between 1922 and 1933. The area we're talking about is named after an African-American educator who taught in segregated schools between 1922 and 1933. I could undoubtedly build a brand around that.
There you go.
Undoubtedly build a brand around that. Eventually, we got to ask ourselves if we have, when is the tipping point on breweries too? Because unlike Asheville or even Richmond, we don't have the critical mass of people that Asheville and Richmond have to support these breweries.
Yeah.
Asheville and Richmond have a larger everyday base of citizens than Charlottesville does. All right, I want to go to the city council meeting from yesterday. Anonymous, I got your comment here. I want to read Anonymous's comments on air. Before I read Anonymous's comments on air, I want to read what Michael Payne said about new construction. I also want to get your take. Viewers and listeners, I want to get your take as well. Michael Payne said yesterday, and I quote, this is on new construction and affordable housing. This is what Michael Payne said, the city councilor. Quote, "We're almost kidding ourselves if we think the supply side solutions are going to be enough to ever address the biggest need in our community, and we have to invest in subsidies and community land trusts and land banks." End quote. Michael Payne basically saying we are joking if we think new construction or increasing the supply side is going to breed or birth affordable housing. Now, new construction advocates, density advocates, upzoning advocates would say that new construction is the proverbial silver buckshot and not the silver bullet. That new construction is an aspect or one aspect of the strategy of creating affordability. Silver buckshot. To steal phrases from Keith Smith, who I'm pretty sure he stole from Robert Liberty. Robert Liberty's a good guy. He's come on Real Talk with Keith Smith. A silver bullet is one solution. A silver buckshot is the metaphor that there's a smattering of solutions when working in unison can solve a problem. And affordability advocates will say that creating more supply is one aspect of the silver buckshot. And the silver buckshot's main goal is to solve affordability in Central Virginia, an area that quickly is becoming very unaffordable for a lot of people. For Michael Payne, who is a socialist, to make that comment, it showed me that Michael Payne has a strong grasp on today's reality. And I've said this once and I will say it again. Today's reality, at least from my goggles, from my vision, from my vantage point, and it's proven to be right on this show quite often, today's reality, the upzoning, the loosening of zoning in Charlottesville City is currently being exploited, that potential, and maybe exploited is not the right word. Maybe the right word is pursued. The upzoning, the loosening of zoning in Charlottesville that's on the near horizon is being pursued by wealthy speculators and investors. And they're scooping up property at expensive clips. And why they're expensive clips is because these properties are trading on upzoning potential and increased density potential. And because of this increased density potential, speculators can buy property now, wait for 6 months to go by, and potentially tear down the property they buy, and 4, 5x, 6x, 7x the amount of bedrooms or doors on that parcel they purchased. And when you're able to add density to something you buy, you can get more return on investment because you can collect more rent. But one thing that's missing that a lot of people are not highlighting, but I continue to do so, the property that's being purchased today by wealthy speculators is at a premium. And because it's at a premium, and because labor is difficult to find for new construction, because cost of goods is still expensive for new construction, and because there's not a lot of people doing these types of projects, and because we're drowning in red tape when it comes to new construction, the cost to build a project when the dirt is already expensive is going to create a level of debt service that is going to force the speculator, the investor, to charge expensive rents. I've said it once, I won't say it, I'll say it again, and I'll continue to say it. The upzoning is going to lead to expensive speculation, and because that speculation is expensive, the people who did the speculating are going to expect high rents once their projects are finished. And it's not going to create affordability. And Michael Payne seems to be, in a lot of ways, agreeing to what I'm saying. This is what Deep Throat says to me in a direct message. He says, Jerry, it is interesting your observation about Payne's comments. He has said similar in the past. It is a measure of the economic illiteracy of this council that the avowed socialist has the best understanding of the dynamics of the housing market. I think that's a strong comment from Anonymous, the Deep Throat of the I Love CVille Network. I think that's a strong comment. And I know this isn't your ballywick, but this is what I think is going to happen. Come the middle of this year, Judah, when council approves upzoning and relaxes zoning ordinances, you're going to see new apartments built, no doubt about it. And those new apartments are going to be in place of single-family detached R1 property. And when those properties are torn down or they're built higher upon, it's going to take 18 to 24 months for those projects to get finished. So you're looking at something truly impacting the local economy and the local ecosystem in 2025. By that time, the University of Virginia is going to get a real good feel on this. And a lot of local employers are going to have good feels on this too. And they're going to add employees, and UVA is going to add students. And that additional housing stock is going to go to six-figure science, technology, engineering, math, finance employees, or UVA students having their rent paid by their moms and dads. Mark that down. Mark that down. Who should fill Sina McGill's spot on council? You said you had some ideas.
No, I didn't.
Well, it's a talk show. Hopefully, for the sake of talking, you will come up with suggestions and keep the conversation fluid and crisp and going with your charming personality.
Let's see. I mean, I'd like to see someone on the other side of the aisle. I'd like to see someone, I don't know, maybe someone like Connie Sylvester would be great if she wanted to, get into CVille politics. I don't know if she lives inside the CVille limits, though.
Kevin Higgins says you should run.
Me?
Judah lives in Albemarle County.
Yeah.
That's the first thing you should say when someone says that. You live in Albemarle County. Would I like to see someone from the other side of the aisle on council? Yes. I would like to see Brian Pinkston, Michael Payne, Juan Diego Wade, and Lloyd Snook fill Sina McGill's empty seat, and the announcement will be made, I think, the third week of February. Applications are still being welcomed. The application process will close soon. Would I like to see 4 men welcome someone with a different political ideology to sit alongside them on the dais? Yes. Do I think it'll happen? No.
No.
I do not.
Neither do I.
What?
I don't think it would happen whether they chose someone or whether there was a new vote. I think CVille just is too liberal to bring someone like.
This is what we should follow. And I'll mention comments on air here shortly. This is what we should follow. We should follow if the person who fills Sina McGill's spot, if that person is doing this strictly as a stopgap solution or instead as a springboard to an election, campaign, and potential 4-year run on council. Because if the person who fills Sina McGill's spot utilizes this for brand exposure and recognition and for campaigning and for getting traction within the community and for utilizing this as a springboard to a 4-year run, that's a huge advantage. Rebecca Berlin was the person who replaced David Oberg on the Albemarle County School Board. That announcement done within the last 30 days. Middle of December it was done, maybe just over 30 days ago. Rebecca Berlin has already indicated to a lot of people that she will run for the Whitehall seat on the Albemarle County School Board. So she's utilizing this period before the election in November as a springboard or trampoline for her campaign. If Lloyd Snook, Brian Pinkston, Juan Diego Wade, and Michael Payne pick somebody who is committed to then running in this November's election, that is a huge advantage for that person.
Yeah.
That is a humongous advantage. Now, why is that important? Come on. Peel the layers off the onion here. You got this. I know you got this.
I'm not really sure.
Why is that important, viewers and listeners? Why would Lloyd Snook and Michael Payne be mindful of the person they pick to fill Sina McGill's spot and whether that person will run for re-election?
Because they may be running against them.
There you go. Judah Wickower. There it is.
Just had to rephrase the question.
There it is. Viewers and listeners, therein lies the rub. Do Lloyd Snook and Michael Payne pool their 2 votes to a 4, Brian Pinkston and Juan Diego Wade on council? And do Payne and Snook conversate about the candidate they pick to fill Sina's spot in February? And does that conversation involve maybe we shouldn't pick someone that's going to run for re-election because me, Lloyd Snook, I'm already running, and Michael Payne likely is going to run as well. This is his number 1 source of income, council. So do Payne and Snook strategically pick someone that is strictly a stopgap?
Or better yet, someone who's got a strong voice, but they know won't pose a threat.
And what's a threat?
What's a threat?
Running for election. That's the threat.
Okay.
That's politics. That's strategy. And some people they get the heebie-jeebies hearing that. And other people realize that's how the game is played. Will we see Snook and Payne endorse someone that has 0 to little shot at running for election in November to fill Cena McGill's spot full-time. Brian Pinkston and Juan Diego Wade could care less about that. They're in the middle of their terms.
Yeah.
Snook and Payne's term ends in December, and their seats are up for re-election in November. Therein lies the rub.
Mm-hmm.
Follow it closely. Follow it closely. Based on that, I would not be surprised if Payne and Snook endorse someone that's in the older side, but time will tell. Time will tell. Carol Thorpe, the queen of Jack Jewett, and she knows politics inside and out, says the Charlottesville Dems have already handpicked one or two referred available options who submitted their applications post-vetting. The broader application process is much like school renaming surveys and committee process. It's all for show. I'm curious to see how much call the CVille Democratic Party has on this, Carol, and how much call Payne and Snook have on this. Time will tell. Time will tell on this. All right. Last item out of the notebook before I get to your comments. Virginia Tech and the University of Virginia play basketball tonight on national TV, ESPNU. It's a 7 p.m. tip. We can go to the one shot for headlines, and then I'll read comments with you on a two shot. UVA is a 5-point favorite. 7 o'clock tip, ESPNU. Rivalry game, throw records out the window. Virginia's defense is first in the ACC, just under 60 points per game allowed. Virginia Tech's defense is third in the ACC. They're allowing 66 points a game, the Hokies. This is going to be a defensive battle right here. Virginia is a team that is still somewhat searching for an identity, but if you haven't realized, they're playing, and I use his nickname in jest. My wife gave him this nickname. They're playing Vanderstash now at center in place of Shedrick. And the starting lineup with Vanderstash at center and Shedrick on the bench is much more potent. Because on the offensive side of the ball, Vanderstash is a feared jump shooter where Shedrick was not. And because defenses have to respect Vanderstash's jump shot and his ability from downtown, it's spreading the floor and allowing Franklin and Clark and Beekman to attack the rack off the dribble, and it's opening up space in the paint from within 10 feet for Jaden Gardner and his mid-range game, and Gardner's mid-range game is legit. So that tweak that Tony Bennett has done, sitting Shedrick and playing Vanderstash, makes this team a lot more frightening or potent on the offensive side of the ball. Give props to Tony Bennett for making this change in the middle of the season. And maybe he knew all along that Vanderstash was going to be a starter on this team. I didn't see it at first, but now I see what this dude brings to the table. Dude is a dynamic college player. Not sold on him being a pro. I'm not sold on him being a Sam Hauser caliber player. That's the comparison. Come to UVA like Sam Hauser transferred to UVA, and maybe you can become a Sam Hauser in the league. I'm not sold on that yet. I think Sam Hauser's a better jump shooter, and I actually think Sam Hauser's a little bit better athlete than Vanderstash. But Vanderstash makes this team pretty dynamic. 7 o'clock, ESPNU, Virginia Tech at the John Paul Jones Arena. All right, comments coming in. Kevin Yancey, I'm going to comment on your comment here. He says, Judah, let's go to the two-shot, J-Dubs. He says Preston Avenue should also be Midtown. He says only 2 blocks separate West Main Street from Preston Avenue.
Yeah, I agree.
You think it should be called Midtown?
I mean, you're basically...
I don't think that should be called Midtown.
You're basically wanting to name every, 3-block strip.
I mean, that's what we're doing right now. How's that any different than what we're doing right now? Downtown Belmont, Midtown, UVA Corner, Downtown Mall, Barracks Road.
Okay.
I'm just spitballing.
I mean, Okay.
Philip Dow says Midtown. Philip Dow, King of Scottsville. I'm going to tell him I read this live on air. Let me reply. Comma, I read this live on air. I mean, viewers and listeners, do you think it should be Midtown?
I mean, if somebody told me some fancy name and I wasn't sure where that was, and then they said Preston, I would say, why didn't you just tell me Preston to begin with?
Here's why I don't think it should be Midtown. What are the neighborhoods around Midtown?
I don't know.
Yes, you do. What neighborhoods are along West Main? What do you mean you don't know? What neighborhoods are along West Main?
What do they call? I don't know the names of all the neighborhoods in the town.
Fifeville,
Okay.
Star Hill.
Okay.
Those are the neighborhoods along West Main.
Okay.
Fifeville and Star Hill. The neighborhoods along the neighborhoods along Preston Avenue are that Rose Hill neighborhood.
You're saying because they're bordered by different neighborhoods, they need different names?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you're of the Rose Hill Neighborhood Association, and I'm confident Rose Hill has a neighborhood association, if you're the Rose Hill Neighborhood Association, it would do you justice and create return on your investment to differentiate your housing stock from Fifeville's and Star Hills. I'm not trying to throw shade at Fifeville or Star Hills houses, but those houses are in of a different caliber or category or price point than the houses in the Rose Hill area. You would not want your brand to be synonymous with Midtown if you own homes in the Rose Hill neighborhood, because you would want a brand that's separate from Midtown's because your price point is separate and different than Midtown's. I mean, hell, you could even call it the Rose Hill District. You could even call it the Rose Hill District. It's a prominent road. It's right off of Preston. But if you're of that neighborhood, you want your own brand.
Okay.
Carol Thorpe says this: Lloyd Snook, Brian Pinkston, and Juan Diego Wade are all company men of the Charlottesville Democratic Party and beholden to the party. Michael Payne is the lone man minority on the outside looking in without any power in this matter. There's some truth to that for sure. That's a good comment. There's some truth to that. Interestingly, Michael Payne was on the Nakia Walker Get Elected committee before Michael Payne ran for office. Paul McCarter says this: I feel like Charlottesville area business don't factor in market saturation when deciding to open. I think so much truth to that. Paul McCarter is the king of Southside. That's in regards to the brewery.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's one thing to pursue your dream. And dude, I'm an entrepreneur who's worked for myself for 15 years, where every morning I woke up and had to figure out a way to drive revenue for team members and my family. That's the first thing I think of in the morning. Okay? And speaking as someone who pursued the American dream of business ownership and launching a business, there's such thing as having an American dream, and then there's another thing altogether of having like an American pipe dream or an American hallucination. An American dream is more strategic with its decision making, where you're choosing to make moves based on market intelligence and hedging and strategic risk taking. An American hallucination or an American pipe dream is doing something without considering consequences or saturation points or hedging or risk-taking strategies.
Like building a water park for Eskimos.
Like, I don't know. I mean, what are the most competitive spaces of business in Central Virginia? Paul's in one, realtor, restaurants, coffee shops. when do we get to the point where local booze brands, and I'm talking craft beer, wine, cider, liquor distilleries, all of them are local booze brands, not just beer, but wine, cider, and liquor. When do we get to the point where we're at pinnacle or peak saturation with local booze brands? It's a 300,000 person market. If you and I right now in a 300,000 person market, I guarantee you I could rattle off 75 local booze brands in Central Virginia. Guarantee you I could do that. Liquor, wine, brewery. That's one local booze brand per 4,000 people.
Yeah.
And 300,000 people in Central Virginia is not even the baseline for local booze brands, because some of those people are kids and can't booze. Some of those people are sober, and some of those people have health issues, and some of the people just don't want to drink. So how many of the 300,000 people are likely actual customers? 200,000? Take 100 off the top. Of that 200,000, you divide that by 75, you're now at 2,666 local booze brands per people. Throw in another headwind of inflation, of American high credit card debt, of the fact that Albemarle County real estate assessments just jumped 13%. They were 8.4% up last year. In 2 years, we're talking 24% nearly increase in real estate assessments, back-to-back years. You throw in eggs, you throw in groceries. Did I say gas? That's other headwinds. It's expensive.
Yeah.
Bob Yarborough says every damn city has a midtown. He's right. Every damn city does have a midtown. And Carol Thorpe doesn't really like the moniker Midtown, by the way. We created that moniker.
I mean, it's...
Scott Aaronworth says Midtown is Cardinal Hall. I agree with him. Kevin Yancey says Rose Hill has more to do with UVA and Barracks Road than Preston Avenue. That's a fair comment. Let me respond to that. That's a fair comment. And you jump in here with what's on your brain, if you have anything. I really do like when you're personable and outgoing and talking. Janice Boyce Trevelyan says parking is tight there. She's not ordering IPAs, and she loves porters and reds.
Nice.
She says Dairy Market is the anchor of Midtown. She calls it the market. Vanessa Parkhill says, Michael Payne is a socialist. He will always favor a government solution over a market-based approach that promotes private property ownership. It's a fair comment. That's a fair comment. I'm responding to her. Anything else you want to add? She says Connie Sylvester would be great, but I don't believe she's in the city, Judah.
Yeah, I don't
she
think
says
she is
Preston
either.
Avenue District should be distinct from Midtown. Why not just work with what everyone already knows it as Preston Avenue? Preston Avenue could be it. Build the brand around Preston.
Yeah, that's why I said it would be odd calling it something else when it's literally just like what?
So you'd call it the Preston District?
I mean, it's what?
You'd call it the Preston District?
It's a few blocks. You want to give it a name?
Preston Hills is what Bob Yarborough, the king of Redfield, says.
Preston Hills.
Preston Hills. What is that, a mix of Preston and Rugby Hills? Because I think Rugby Hills is the neighborhood right next to it. I think that's what he's going for there. All right, we got a 1:45. Closing thoughts? People like your closing thoughts. Do it for Juan Sarmiento, who's watching at Charlottesville Albemarle Transportation.
Oh, man. Closing thoughts? Well,
We do closing thoughts every show. Every show we do have closing thoughts.
And I was just about to give them.
Okay. Every show you look surprised when closing thoughts comes up.
It's because I'm not very good at giving closing thoughts. So,
You're
I mean,
good at
I would
giving-
say that
you're good at
I
giving
hope
closing
that,
thoughts.
SuperFly comes out with some. I hope they stay true to their name and really go funky with some of the stuff and just try some things out and give us some interesting beers that are, worthwhile, rather than, flooding the market with more of the same. And yeah, I know they got to have IPAs. I don't care. They can have their IPAs. Just do something else that's notable.
Those were good closing thoughts. I like those closing thoughts. Good job. Scott Aaronworth says we'll see you guys in 4 weeks.
All right.
He's coming in 4 weeks.
Nice.
Yeah. The king of Virginia Beach might be the biggest foodie in Charlottesville and Central Virginia. He does these things called foodcations, where he visits Charlottesville for 4-day benders, and he spends $1,000+ on dining, eating, and just gluttony. It's beautiful. It's just so beautiful. I absolutely love it. All right, closing thoughts for me. We enjoy connecting with you guys through the show. We talk about stuff that I think is really real, that we brainstorm about, my wife and I brainstorm about, friends brainstorm about. Some of the conversation can be difficult from an awkwardness, but it's just meant to, in the grand scheme of things, make this area a better place. I mean, that's all I'm looking for from Central Virginia. I have 2 sons. One of them is now 7 weeks old, and the other is almost 5 years old. And my wife would love nothing more, my wife and I would love nothing more than our 2 sons staying in this area and raising their families in this area and continuing a professional and personal path in Central Virginia so we could be near them. I think about things like that now as a dad. What's this place going to be like 50 years from now when our 2 sons are raising their families in Central Virginia potentially? And I just want to leave it in a better place for them. That's what I want. I want to leave Central Virginia in a better place for our 2 sons and their families should they choose to call Central Virginia home. It's one of my passions now after being a dad. All right, that's today's talk show. Thank you for joining us. You guys have a good afternoon and take care.